Hey everybody, it is Kellen Nitro for Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited coming at you with another Classic Nitros take. It's part 3 of the Battle of Thanksgiving 1987. We're going to take a look at the final pay-per-view event from that day, which was, well, the very first Survivor Series, WWF Survivor Series 1987. It took place from the Richfield Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio. Again, the date, November 26, 1987. Now, I apologize on the delay for this. Life sometimes finds a way and gets in the way, but I am super thrilled to be bringing this to you, as this is kind of a cool story about the entire day, and it was just a day of wrestling way back when in 1987, and the after effects of it kind of last to this day, where nobody has ever decided to run head to head against a WWE show since then, because, well, quite frankly, Vince has strange voodoo magic and can, basically knock you off the air, as we've seen with Starrcade 87. They would eventually move all the Starrcades to December, as to not to conflict with Survivor Series, but there went the Thanksgiving night tradition of Starrcade and began the Thanksgiving night tradition for a few years at least of Survivor Series, until that itself decided just to become well, the November pay-per-view. That's it. So as I mentioned, this is the second pay-per-view of the day. This one went, well, right after Starrcade 87 went off the air. I couldn't find an exact start time for this show anywhere online when it started and what the start time was that night. Feel free to post up in the comments below. But there is quite a bit of dead time off the top of the show, at least in the copy that I watched, and we'll get more into that in a few minutes here. This is only a 4-match card, but these are the classic teams of 5 strive to survive format. So this is the first time ever for this concept. They had several ideas though leading into this pay-per-view. They were all nixed, and of course they went with the teams of 5 strive to survive, and then that later became just teams of 4, so you could fit a few matches more. And then they completely throughout the years abolished that idea and just decided to have maybe 1 or 2 of these with a bunch of singles matches. And now, as we've seen over the past few years, it's become intra-brand warfare between Raw, SmackDown, and sometimes NXT, where there's, the champions of each brand basically square off in head-to-head matches. And then you have the traditional 5-on-5 matches for the men and the women, representing their brands. But this is all 5v5 elimination tag action. So let's spitball a little bit here for some of the other concepts that were proposed that night. Of course, this is right on the tails of Wrestlemania III. So of course you have the whole Hogan and Andre feud still red hot at this point. This of course is the first pay-per-view WWF has done since WrestleMania III, the huge number at the Pontiac Silverdome, and Hogan slamming Andre the Giant. But of course, the storyline is that there was a fast count during that match, which really wasn't a fast count. It was just more of a botch between Andre and Hulk off of the initial slam. And this was a designed spot. Hogan got Andre up. Andre just leans forward, and of course, it becomes a crossbody at that time by Andre on top of Hulk, and it's like a splash at the same time. Hulk hits the mat. Joey Morella, the referee at the time, goes down, goes 1, 2, and I think his hand does hit free on the video, but Hogan just gets his shoulder out at the classic 2.999999 mark, if you want to put it that way. But it in itself created a bunch of controversy off of that event, because a lot of people who were live in the Silverdome that day and a lot of people who were watching on pay-per-view thought that that was a free count, that Andre the Giant should be the WWF champion at that time. So that basically, either by design or by happy accident, was what they built the feud off of over the summer and into the fall. So some of the pitched concepts for this, you knew that it was going to center between Hogan and Andre, and it did. So some of the pitched concepts for this pay-per-view was a Hogan-Andre no DQ, no count-out singles match, potentially in a steel cage. There was going to be a 5v5 round-robin tournament, still with team members, so each guy still picks 5 members of his quote-unquote team, but it would be a series of singles matches throughout the pay-per-view, and whichever team garnered the most amount of victories would have won, which probably would have culminated, I think, with a tie between both teams, and then not seeing Hogan and Andre lock up, that probably being the last match that would have decided the entire pay-per-view. Pretty interesting concept on paper, but you look at it, you know, about a couple years later at Starrcade 89, when they did the whole Future Shock tournament and so on and so forth, it kind of runs dry after the first hour, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you got two faces squaring off against each other. What's going on? Now, you wouldn't have had this under the 5v5 team round robin thing. You would have had, like, say, hypothetically, Rick Rude would wrestle Bam Bam Bigelow, and then Ken Patera, and so on that entire team, right? So yeah, it would have been interesting on paper. I don't think it would have lasted more than a year or two, though. It wouldn't have the classic quality as the Survivor Series team tag matches have today, for sure. And then, of course, they were just looking at doing another normal pay-per-view with normal matches and such. There was beefs and feuds and whatever. And this, if they would have booked Survivor Series under any other name in that time slot up against Starrcade, they would have been murdered by Starrcade. I think Starrcade had it still, even with the half-baked builds and that stuff, had the better build and a better flow to it than a traditional one-on-one or tag team, you know, or just basically a normal card, I should say, with tag team matches and one-on-one matches. Like, you maybe have your Intercontinental title match between Savage and Honky Tonk Man. Maybe you have your tag team title match between the Hearts and whoever at that time. Maybe you have Hogan and Andre, maybe in a cage in the main event for that. But, you know, that's hearsay, that's all rumor and innuendo. This is what they developed. It was a teams of five strive to survive concept. Now, WWF officials, Vince McMahon and the like, decided on the Elimination Tag 5v5 format after watching several All Japan and New Japan matches in which the Elimination Tag format was utilized. Yeah, if you go on YouTube and check out some of the All Japan and New Japan Elimination Tags from this era, they are very similar to what we would see in the later part of the 80s with the Survivor Series format. Elimination tags have and always will be big over there because, well, look at today's New Japan. It's basically an all-star match in a match. You know, everybody can get their stuff in, and you know, under 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a good filler match on a card. It gets guys on the card that wouldn't normally be on the card, and everybody leaves happy because they get the wrestlers get visibility on TV, and the fans who, you know, somewhat like some of the people or somewhat hate you know, some of the people in these matches or whatever, get to see them in action. So, you know, it's a win-win proposition. Quite frankly, I think promoters should look at doing more of these style of matches. The problem is WWE over the past decade or so basically wore out the 6- and 8-man tag concepts as main events on SmackDown and Raw, you know, for their weekly shows. So it's kind of a burned out model at this point, but there's nothing that company hasn't touched over the past few years that isn't burned out by this point, just because of the sheer amount of content they produce. It was bound to happen. They just seriously need to look at reducing shows per week. But that's another video. And of course, the 5v5 format would hide in the main event a very banged up Andre the Giant, who had just returned from surgery and shooting the movie The Princess Bride. Yes, he had taken some time off. Still showing up from time to time on television and a few house shows, but for most of the time, this was his first major match. Well, this is the first time that he and Hogan would touch since Wrestlemania III, and it was. After Wrestlemania III, Andre kind of left the company for a bit. It's all detailed in that documentary that HBO produced and put out a few years ago. Go check it out. It's awesome. But yeah, this is his downtime between Wrestlemania III and you know, coming back here at Survivor Series. But this was the start of kind of like the physical downfall of Andre the Giant. So a little bit of a sad time here. But he was actually starting to break apart physically about 1984, 1985-ish, but really started to show it in the late 80s here. So, but this would hide Andre quite a bit. It's a 5v5 tag. He only has to tag in for certain spots during this thing and at the end. So slip the dogs of war. Let's see what happens. Now you're probably asking, hey, did you watch this on a WWE network? And I will answer, no, I did not. I actually watched it on this. This is the Survivor Series Anthology DVD set. This came out in 2009 by WWF Home Video. Well, WWF Home Video, get the F out, come on. WWE Home Video. And it's pretty cool. They did, I think, 4 of these sets, and they split them by years. So Volume 1, shall we put it that way, was 1987 through 1991, and they are the first 5 Survivor Series on 15 hours of DVD, and they are pure pay-per-view rips. So this is how it aired on the pay-per-view with the few edits and that stuff. Probably the same version that's up on the WWF network, or WWE network. Here we go again right now. But you can check it out, and these go for a very affordable price on eBay and that stuff, and I would suggest to anybody picking these up for sure. I've got the first 2 volumes myself, 87 through 91 and 92 through 96. I'll probably look over the next little bit at trying to add 97 through 2001, 2002 to the collection as well, for obvious reasons. The 97 Survivor Series we'll get into one day here on the channel, but infamous, very infamous. And another plus, the menu music on this set, for the first 2 volumes at least, is amazing. It's a Jim Johnston produced track, and it's almost Sammy Hagar-ish a little bit of Sammy Hagar, Van Halen sounding. Very cool. As a hair metal guy, I love it. So the runtime for this show is 2 hours, 39 minutes, and 54 seconds, and the show opens with the Fink introducing Jesse Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon, who run down the rules of the card. And this is this whole long preamble I'm talking about. The first 6 or 7 minutes, the first match doesn't get the music for the participants for the first match doesn't hit until about 7 or 8 minutes into the thing here. So we get a lot of preamble before, because we go to the back end. Craig DeGeorge, who's working with WWF at this time, interviews the Honky Tonk Man and his team, and it's basically a who's who of the mid-card heeled side at this time. And we get a decent pop for the opening match announcement, and the participants make their way down. It is the first match, the first hour ever Survivor Series 5-on-5 elimination contest. The heel side for this contest is the King Harley Race, Hercules, Outlaw Ron Bass, Dangerous Danny Davis, and the Intercontinental Champion, the Honky Tonk Man, with Jimmy Hart taking on, and of course Bobby the Brain Heenan as well, because some of his charges are here. Kind of a manager's alliance of mid-card heels, if you will, taking on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and of course the captain, the Macho Man Randy Savage, with Miss Elizabeth. And it's weird as heck seeing Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage on the same side since the build of WrestleMania III and beyond, but you know, common enemies make strange bedfellows, they do. So Beefcake and Hercules started off, and the crowd is really behind the face side. Duggan and Race get into it and battle to the outside for a double count out. It's a 4v4 at that point. Outlaw Ron Bass and Randy Savage have an exchange with Bass in control. Savage makes a blind tag to Beefcake, and the Beefer hits the high knee for the 1-2-3. 4 versus 3, Team Savage, Brutus the Barber, Beefcake, Beefcake, high knee, get it? Meh. Savage trying to rile the crowd up and takes a swipe at Earl Hebner on the outside during this contest. I think they were just getting over that he was crazy and unpredictable. Beefcake is cooking in the ring, but Davis catches Brutus with a knee to the back, and Honky hits the shake, rattle, and roll and gets the 1-2-3 to even the sides up once again. Free versus free. Davis and Roberts pair up. Davis gets caught with a short arm clothesline and a DDT. Huge pop for the DDT. 1-2-3 for Jake Roberts, and 3 versus 2, Team Savage again. Savage tags in after Steamboat wears down Hercules. lands the flying elbow on Hercules, gets the pinfall, and it's 3 versus 1 for Team Savage. Honky's the only member of his team, and after getting triple teamed, Honky says see ya and gets counted out. Your remaining survivors off of the opening contest: Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat, and Jake the Snake Roberts. The runtime for that one is 24 minutes even. Actually, it's amazing how even timed these matches are. You don't have a second count in any of these you don't have a second count in any of these matches at all. They go right up to the minute. They time out right to the minute. Whether that's designed that they were supposed to be 20 minutes and they go 24 minutes or vice versa, who knows. But yeah, multiple sites I've looked at it. The timing for these, they have match 1 listed as 24 minutes even, and they'll have match 2 listed as 20 minutes even. Match 3 is 37 minutes even, and the main event is 22 minutes even. Like, these guys were working on clockwork. If you go the next year to 1988, you take a look at the run times for that match. Not so much. 17:50, 42:12, 30:03, so they missed the 30-minute mark by 3 seconds, and 29:10, and they missed the 30-minute mark by, well, a minute. So, but it's kind of cool to see them just effortlessly, get this out of for a brand new concept. This is just launched out there. We head to the back, and Craig DeGeorge again interviews Andre the Giant and his team. Bobby Heenan claims that the Joey Morella botch in the Mania Free main event was a Andre victory. Andre says he's here for Hogan's soul and will be the survivor. And match 2 is the Ladies Survivor Series match. This would be a tradition on the, well, it was on the first Survivor Series in 87. In 88, as I thumb through my notes here and that stuff, it was dropped. So women's Survivor Series matches through the first decade and a half or so are very infrequent. This is the first and only women's Survivor Series match that you will see until 1995, when all of the All Japan women and Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano and that stuff happened at the 95 Survivor Series. But this is the first and only match of its type for a while. Like I said, 87 through 95. That's a 7-8 year period or so. So we take a look at the sides here for this one. On the heel side, they are captained by Sensational Sherry. She's got the Glamour Girls, Leilani Kai and Judy Martin, Donna Christianello and Dawn Marie Johnston, taking on the face side, the captain, strange here, the Fabulous Moolah actually as the captain here, the Jumping Bomb Angels of Yamazaki and Tetano, Rockin' Robin and Velvet McIntyre. So it's a hodgepodge of women's competitors here. Yeah, it's weird seeing Moolah as a face here, but she's a face. And a feud that I really didn't know about. Sensational Sherry feuding with Fabulous Moolah over the WWF Women's Championship, in which Sherry would actually win and Moolah would take her leave from the company. We wouldn't see her until, believe it or not, the Attitude Era would be the next time she'd show up with Mae Young back in the, well, the late 90s. So there we go, 99, 2000 or so. The match starts hot as Velvet and Sherry start. Quick tags early by the face side. Velvet gets a quick roll up on Christianello for the 1-2-3. 5v4 for Team Moolah. Rockin' Robin grabs a flying crossbody and Dawn Marie, not the ECW one, Dawn Marie Johnston as we've seen, and gets a 1-2-3. 5 versus 3 for Team Moolah. The Jumping Bomb Angels go all Japan women on Kai and Martin. Sherry tags in and doesn't fare better. Yeah, if you like your Joshi, that's a great sequence because, man, they just, when they hit the ring, they are the stars of this match. This is a coming out party for them for sure. Sherry falls Rockin' Robin with a suplex, 4 versus 3. That would be a feud 88 into 89. Over the Women's Championship. Moolah gets eliminated via a Martin Kai double team clothesline for the 1-2-3. It's 3 versus 3 at this point. Velvet gets Judy Martin to a surfboard submission. Very nice. Velvet hooks on a giant swing and a victory roll on Sherry and grabs the 1-2-3. 3 versus 2 for the face side. And that ends up being a huge upset. And I think they built some singles matches off of that as well. But you could hear the building just go, whoa, like that. They totally didn't expect McIntyre beating Sherry Martel in that match at all. Sensational Sherry in that one. Velvet, though, selling the back badly off that one. Then we see Kai grab a electric chair type maneuver on McIntyre, and then a 1-2-3 for the 2 versus 2. It's effectively a women's tag match now as the Jumping Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls go head to head, and it's the best way to end this match. These two would feud over the WWF Women's Tag Team titles. Yes, Google it. They were a thing in 1987. You know, everybody's thinking, well, hey, over the past few years, 2019 or so, the women's tag team straps, are they a thing? You know, yes, they are. This is cutting edge. No. They were around in the late 80s. They just discontinued them after 1988 or so. So the Angels pick Kai off of a crossbody for the 1-2-3, and a huge pop as the Angels double drop kicked them out for the South. Pinfall shortly thereafter with a flying clothesline 1-2-3, and the Soul Survivors, the Jumping Bomb Angels, to kind of elevate the Angels Glamour Girls feud over the tag straps over the next few months. We'd see them again at the Royal Rumble for the WWF Women's Tag Team Championship straps. Potentially more on that later on as we get closer to, well, into January and that stuff. Maybe, hint hint, for some future content on the channel. We'll see. And then we head back to the back, and Craig DeGeorge has the Hart Foundation 10-man team in the back. Anvil says, what's gone on with Jimmy Hart tonight was only bad luck. Then we go into the 10-man tag team match of survival. On one side, the Hart Foundation, who are the tag champions at this point. The Dream Team, Demolition, Islanders, and the Bolsheviks. And then they're taking on the face side of the British Bulldogs, Strike Force, the Killer Bees, the Rougeau Brothers, and the Young Stallions. There are too many goddamn teams in this one. There are. It's a 10-man tag match, so it is comical as hell just seeing all these wrestlers just kind of camp out on the apron during this thing. It's not very cool at all to see it. This was the first of 2 tag team matches of Survival during the first 2 years. The only rule change is if you are eliminated, your tag team partner is gone as well. So, yeah, if you get pinned, submitted, DQ'd, counted out, whatever, yeah, your buddy's gone too. So that team is eliminated, just to maybe make the match move along quicker. Volkov and Martel start things off. This just seems dangerous, just having this amount of people up on the apron. Santana tags in and nails Volkov with a flying forearm. It's a short night for the Bolsheviks. I don't even think Zhukov's in the ring at all. 1-2-3, 5v4 advantage for the Bulldog Strike Force team. Dynamite and Haku go toe-to-toe. Lots of cool, stiff, strong style there. If you want to look at that sequence, it's on the WWE Network. Go check it out. Jacques Rougeau goes for a high cross body on Smash. Smash ducks and gets the 1-2-3. The Rougeaus are out. It's a 4v4 at that point. Smash and Axe double team Dynamite and shove the ref. They get DQ'd, and it's 4v3 for the faces, you know, right after. So they'd have a more important, I guess, storyline at Survivor Series the year after, with the double turn in that match with the Powers of Pain joining up with Mr. Fuji, and Demolition getting basically beat up and turfed by Mr. Fuji, and that would be the emphasis of the WrestleMania 5 3 vs. 2 tag team match. So there we go. Dynamite and Brett have a great exchange as usual. Yeah, that was cool watching them go one-on-one in there. Anvil pins Santana. I think he used a megaphone. I didn't see it in the camera cutaway. It evens it up at 3 vs. 3. Bulldogs are eliminated by the Hearts. It's 3 vs. 2 for the heels. A blind tag from Jim Powers to Paul Roma, and Greg Valentine of the Dream Team doesn't see it and gets caught by a sunset flip by Roma. 1-2-3, 2v2. This wouldn't be Paul Roma's definitive Survivor Series performance. Fast forward a few years to 1990, where he and Hercules were managed by Slick under the tag team known as Power and Glory, and the Powerplex finish on the Rockers in their on their 4v4 Survivor Series elimination match was amazing. It's awe-inspiring. It's actually pretty cool. I know they had been using that match quite a bit, and I think they had had it at SummerSlam as well, as Powers of Pain and the Rockers were feuding at the time. But yeah, the Powerplex finish, way cool, way better than the Sunset Flip tandem thing that Powers and Roma were doing at the time. So Killer Bees and the Hart Foundation go head to head next, and Brunzell drop kicks Brett and lands a pinfall 1-2-3 victory on Bret Hart, and the Hart Foundation is gone, so it's a 2v1 advantage for the face team. Mass confusion by the Bees, and they get the pin on Haku 1-2-3, and that's it. The sole survivors, the Killer Bees and the Young Stallions. It's a real cluster F of a match, very entertaining. Runtime again is 37 minutes. It's the longest match on this card. You know, the women's match was the 20-minute match, and we had talked about the times before. The opener was 24 minutes. It's, like I said, cluster but entertaining. We didn't get the infamous Thanksgiving Day $1 Million Man vignette. This is the infamous, like I said, Thanksgiving Day vignette. And we see a young Rob Van Dam kissing Ted's feet in a recap. Classic stuff. So, yeah, watch for that. Watch for the kid with the mullet and the green t-shirt. That is a very young teenaged Rob Van Dam at a live event who was brought up in the ring when the $1 Million Man was doing those challenges where he'd say, I would give $100 to somebody to give it, just to prove his heel point, right? So, yeah, and Rob has openly talked about that in the past, too. So, pretty cool moment. Pretty cool moment. Craig DeGeorge then interviews the Honky Tonk Man, talks about his loss earlier in the night, and says he can beat Hulk Hogan and Macho can't beat him. Well, that would be setting up matches coming up later on in the year, and kind of the genesis of the Mega Powers alignment between Hogan and Savage, which would be solidified at the end of WrestleMania 4. So you could see them already in the, you know, they were working a program between Savage and Honky at this point, but it would definitely come to a head in more of a major way as the weeks and months would go on. And then, of course, you have your classic Mean Gene interview of Hulk Hogan and his team. Hogan nearly tackles Bam Bam Bigelow when Bigelow's turn in the promo comes right up. Very funny. But it's main event time. This is the 5v5 poster match, if you will. You have on one side Bobby Heenan and Slick's team with Andre the Giant the Captain, the One Man Gang, the Natural Butch Reed, King Kong Bundy, and Ravishing Rick Rude. Arguably one of the heaviest tag teams in Survivor Series history, taking on, well, Hulk Hogan's team. Hulk Hogan, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, The Rock Don Morocco, Ken Patera, and Bam Bam Bigelow. So Heenan introduces Andre the Giant. The boos are huge. And Hogan, on his way to the ring, just locked on as the... just eyes are locked on Andre here going forward. Hogan on his way to the ring, the eyes are locked on Andre here going forward. Joey Marella refereeing the match, much like Mania 3, and Morocco and Rude start. All five faces get their licks in on Rude, including a assisted huge big splash by Bigelow, and Bigelow was jacked. The dude bolted across the ring, and it's kind of a cool tandem maneuver. Hogan's still in the ring after delivering his leg drop, and it's an assisted, almost like that as Bigelow's going down for the big splash. I almost think that was something that was maybe worked upon the two prior in Japan or something like that. A very cool spot. And Patera gives Reed a wrestling clinic, tons of amateur moves, and then a double clothesline on Reed by Orndorff, and a Hogan, the big leg drop, 1-2-3, and it's 5v4 for Hogan's team. Now Hogan tags Patera here. Hogan turns around, and Andre is the legal man. Hogan missed an opportunity at Andre, yes. So what had happened right after is Patera puts his hand up for a high five, and Hogan starts high-fiving his team members after the pinfall. Andre steps over the ropes. He's the new legal man in the match, and all of a sudden the crowd pops. We're going to get Hogan and Andre, but then Marella tells Hogan to exit the ring. It's going to be actually Andre and Ken Patera going head-to-head here. Andre then tags out to the One Man Gang, and Ken Patera and One Man Gang kind of go head-to-head for a while. but Gang and Patera catch each other with a double clothesline. Gang gets on top. 1, 2, 3. It's 4v4. Orndorff and Rude have a whale of an exchange. Orndorff goes for his pile driver, but King Kong Bundy nails Orndorff from behind, and Rude gets the pin. 1, 2, 3, and it's a 4v3 advantage for the heel side. But Morocco evens it up, grabs a pin on Ravishing Rick Rude. 3 versus 3. Now, of course, Morocco has his spot in the match, because leading up to this thing, it was supposed to be Superstar Billy Graham in Morocco's spot in this match. But of course, he was laid out, I believe, by the Heenan family post-match, and it turned out to be one of Billy Graham's final appearances in ring for WWF. He'd become a commentator and a manager in '88, but this is just due to too many injuries and you know, his deteriorating health and so on and so forth, even starting early at that time. You know, Superstar Billy Graham, one of the biggest stars of the late 70s or so. But definitely check out that 20 Years Too Soon documentary, either on the network or on DVD or whatever, where you can find it. So, of course, it's 3 versus 2 for the heels now. To recap, we've got Bigelow and Hogan on the face side. We've got King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant, and One Man Gang on the heel side. Very formidable. You got a one body guy and 4 large big guys left there, you know, for the final 2 here. But we finally get our head-to-head here as Andre jumps into the ring and tries to go one-on-one with Bigelow and does for a bit, but then Bigelow evades Andre and tags in Hulk Hogan, and Hogan is taking it to Andre until One Man Gang and Bundy pull Hogan out of the ring. Hogan fights off One Man Gang and Bundy, but Hogan in the process gets counted out. It's 3 versus 1 for the heel side, and it's Bam Bam Bigelow versus the heel threesome of Andre, One Man Gang, and King Kong Bundy. Bam Bam evades the Bundy avalanche and hits a springboard splash for a 1, 2, 3, and now it's 2 versus 1. One Man Gang goes for a top rope splash, but Bam Bam moves and One Man Gang misses for the 1, 2, 3. It's 1v1, and it's Andre the Giant versus Bam Bam Bigelow to find out who would be the sole survivor in this contest. Bam Bam looked good, but Andre lands his suplex and gets the 1, 2, 3. The sole survivor is Andre the Giant. So Andre gets his payback from WrestleMania and is the sole survivor on this night. But post-match, Hogan comes back and clears the ring because Hogan must pose, brother. And there's a security guard that escorts Andre and Heenan, and he's as tall as Andre. Weird. This is a wild stuff. Mean Gene catches up Andre and Bobby Heenan, and Heenan says, sign the contract, you can have him. Andre delivered on his promise for the night, but hey, Hogan, you want a rematch? Sign the contract, and guess what? You're building up towards the next big special, which would be the Royal Rumble in January, where the contract signing would be one of the key elements for WrestleMania 4. Where the contract signing for WrestleMania 4 would be one of the key elements of that card. Hogan still poses, and Ventura says he's leaving Cleveland. We do a slideshow and then fade to black. So overall, I will give the WWF Survivor Series the nod as the better of the 2 shows on the day. I will also give it a 8.5 out of 10. I think it's still rewatchable to this day, even though the style is very outdated. It's still kind of cool to see the cartoony gimmicks of WWF wrestlers from back in that day out in the ring. It's a solid card from front to back. It's very digestible, and again, it's one of those things where yeah, Andre got his comeuppance here. He got the payback for you know, doing the job to Hogan at WrestleMania 3. So it's awesome stuff. And that will conclude our look at Thanksgiving of 1987. Now, the 2 companies, JCP and WWF, would bang heads once again in January of 1988. But we will wait until January of 1988 before we tackle this one. So that is upcoming next year on the channel. I'm Kellen Nitro. Later days, happy wrestling watching, and we'll see you next time on Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited. Take care.